Hi, I'm Jeremy Kehres, and we are out here in the barn, and I'm going to read a story to my wife and kids, and our pig Pork Chop, and our goats Billy and Gruff is around here somewhere, a couple of chickens, and our 3 sheep, Lucy, Eliza, and Velma. This is my wife Karen.
Hello.
That's Gavin.
Hello.
Claire,
Hi.
Caitlin,
Hi.
and Gracie. And I had the idea to write this story and kind of involve the American Revolution with it. And since I have no artistic ability whatsoever, my 8th graders did all the illustrations for it. So this is called Santa Saves the Revolution. Oh, and our illustrators, are Ella Brogan, Luke G, Ellie, Hannah, Olivia, Jack N, Caitlin, Nathan, Luke D, and Victoria. So thank you for all their illustrations. Santa Saves the Revolution. Once upon a time, there were 2 brother countries who didn't like each other very much. They fought like a Rottweiler and a kitty cat and just couldn't get along. There were proclamations, massacres, and acts that were so intolerable. Their names were America and Great Britain, and fight, fight, fight was all they seemed to do. England never got along with its other sibling nations, France or Spain, either. Because of this, England got coal in their stockings for Christmas every single year. No wonder England was always so grumpy. All America ever wanted to do with its big brother was play. They loved to play games like Tar and Feather, as well as King of the Bunker Hill. They loved making s'mores around effigy fires. Oh, and America loved to have tea parties. But no matter what, England never wanted to play. One day, America finally had enough of its grumpy big brother. They ditched the olive branches, and with the help of Thomas Jefferson, they finally declared their independence from mean old England. England was mad. They attacked Lexington and Concord, hoping to steal all of America's Nerf guns. One shot in particular was heard all around the world. England had the best soldiers and the most money. Plus, England had the biggest boats, the best boats. And poor America didn't have hardly any at all. But you know what? Mean old England didn't care. Do you know who did care? Santa cared. Coal was heavy and difficult to carry in his sleigh, and Santa's reindeer were tired of having to lug all this coal around just because England kept misbehaving. Day after day, Santa checked his list, and day after day, England appeared on the naughty list. It was almost December, and a special visitor was coming to the North Pole. You see, Santa had a special helper elf who had been scouting the British to see if they were being naughty or nice. "Good morning, Benedict Arnold," said Santa. "Great to see you," replied Benedict. Santa hoped Benedict Arnold brought good news. Instead, Benedict Arnold explained the reasons why England should remain on the naughty list. Santa was sad. Meanwhile, way south of the North Pole, things were not going well for America. They lost all of New York and could not find it anywhere. And the soldiers at Valley Forge didn't have any fun at all. They hardly had any food or warm clothes. It was so cold, and they didn't even want to build snowmen or go sledding. Instead, they practiced and practiced to be the best soldiers they could be to help them stay warm. In the freezing cold of his tent, George Washington, one of Santa's favorite Americans, sat down to write his Christmas list. He didn't put any items on the list that only he wanted, like a brand new lawnmower for Mount Vernon or a powdery new wig. Instead, he put items on the list that were best for America. Nerf guns, food, shoes and clothing for soldiers, French aid, competent officers, and big boats like England had. Meanwhile, in faraway England, King George, one of Santa's least favorites, sat down to write his Christmas list. The evil King George wrote the following items on his list: a quick and easy victory for the British, the board game Continental Congress Heads Will Roll, and most of all, a permanent stay for George Washington at the Internment Ship Hotel. It was Christmas Eve. Both America and England were so excited to celebrate. England excitedly waited for Santa's arrival, hoping for the best presents. George Washington and the Americans made other plans. They were going to pay a surprise visit to the English and their Hessian friends who were staying not too far away. However, there was a huge problem. George Washington and his men had to cross the icy Delaware River. It was dark. It was freezing cold. The Americans' eyes watered in the whipping wind. It was snowing so much that the soldiers felt like they were trapped in a giant snow globe. George Washington led his men bravely across the water. Suddenly, the boat came to an abrupt stop. George Washington, standing for some reason on a boat in icy, choppy water, was flung into the air. In slow motion, George Washington's body flipped into the air, hurtling towards his icy doom. All of a sudden, just as his body was to be submerged in water, his right hand was snatched out of the air and he was pulled to safety onto the boat. He whirled around to see who had just saved his life by grabbing his right hand. It was his dear friend, Alexander Hamilton. George Washington was safe, but why had the boat come to a sudden stop? He looked around the edges of the boat, noticing they were completely iced in. Their boat would not move. What were they to do? The war is going to be lost forever, a somber George Washington thought to himself. Just then, a flashing red light beamed across the sky. Are those the lanterns from the Old North Church? George Washington thought. The light came closer and closer, stopping 100 feet above the boat. The men looked up in awe as Santa's sleigh and reindeer hovered above them. A rope dropped from the sleigh. A voice carried from above. Ho, 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 tie this to your boat and I'll pull you to safety. John Paul Jones, the only Navy man on board for some reason, plucked the rope out of the air and tied it to the boat. Santa began his familiar slogan, now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer. Suddenly, the boat began to rock back and forth between the icebergs that were holding it hostage. At last, the boat jerked free and bounced across the blocks of ice before finally landing in snow on the riverbank, tossing soldiers clumsily into the air. George Washington looked up through the blinding snow, hoping to catch another glimpse of Santa Claus. He finally located his red-cheeked face in the sleigh. Thank you, reindeer. Thank you, Santa Claus. With a twinkle in his eye, Santa replied, no, thank you, George Washington. Colonel Raw and the rest of the soldiers and rest of the English and Hessian troops lay in their beds, dreaming of full stockings and bowed presents under the tree. Surprise! Bellowed George Washington, and what a surprise it was. The American soldiers walloped the unsuspecting soldiers, forcing them to scatter from Trenton and Princeton and into the New Jersey countryside. The Americans had seized Christmas Day away from the English. George Washington was finally able to crack a smile. Just then, he looked up and saw the familiar red light streaming across the sky. In a distant yet familiar voice, he heard, ho, 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 on to Saratoga, on to Kings Mountain and Cowpens, on to Yorktown. George Washington winked up at Santa, thinking aloud, thank you, Santa, for saving the Revolution. And as for England, they got coal in their stockings yet again. The end. From our family to yours, we wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!